Hi, Matt with etrailer. Today we're going to talk about the Swagman ROAMER Roof Rack. Now this is going to be something that is designed for more so your pop-up campers, your camper shells, or anything of that nature. But we'd love to see how you're using it or what type of vehicle or camper you're putting this on. So you can either send us a picture or leave a comment talking about your experience. So what's going to come with this kit are going to be these square bars, and we're going to have these towers, and these towers are actually going to bolt on or screw into your roof. Now they can go in a couple different ways. It's going to be more dependent on what type of roof you have, but we talk a little bit about that during the installation part. Now it's super important you just check what your roof is rated for, because this is going to have a weight capacity of 150 pounds. I know it's bolted into place, and that typically gives it a higher weight capacity, but typically with your campers or your shells, you're going to have lower weight capacity. So it is important you just double check that. So this is going to have a recommended crossbar spread, a minimum one. That's going to be 30 inches. If you're over 30 inches, you're going to be just fine. So it's important you just check if your gear is compatible with this. Something else you need to check is if your gear is going to work with these square bars. So when they clamp around here, just make sure they're going to have enough room for that. Now when it comes to the installation of this, the biggest thing about it is just getting your measurements right the first time. We talk a little bit about that, but if you are curious to see that, just stay tuned, we'll walk you through it. All right, to start off the installation, what we want to do is kind of lay down some markers where our crossbars and towers are going to sit. You don't want to do this multiple times throughout the installation. You want to kind of do it just one time and then have it set. So we have to be pretty precise, because if we're off, later on, if we have to make any adjustments, you may have already made some holes. We don't want to deal with that, so we're going to make sure we do a good job now. So what I like to do is find a point that's not going to be different on either side. So what I'm going to do is come over to this bracket here, and this is going to be the opening to the door. So I know this is going to be pretty even throughout. And what I like to do is measure X amount up, so you can see I have this tape laid down. Since I already did all my measurements, what I did personally was measure 6 inches away from the unit on top of here on either side, and then I just double check myself with that bracket on the back side of here to make sure everything is even. A lot of times I'm even using these lights, the door on the actual trailer itself. I'm just cross-referencing to make sure everything is even. Once I do that, I like to lay down some painter's tape, and with that painter's tape, I just leave a mark on there, get a measuring stick or any type of flat surface, and just make sure we have a line that we can reference. From there, then I'm going to add X amount. So let's say we want to have a minimum of 30 inches of our crossbar spread. I'm going to measure 30 inches forward right about here. Well, again, I'm going to lay down my tape. I'm going to make my lines and then just double check it again. What I also did was I took some long pieces of tape. I don't like working in short bits because it's kind of harder to keep a straight line. So the longer the tape, the better. And I just go along the edge. I do this on either side because this is primarily where we're mostly going to be working from. This just gives me the option and it lets me see if I need to make any marks or indicators. And the last thing I do with these pieces of tape is to just find the center on top of your roof and mark that out too. Once all that's marked out, we're going to come over and grab our brackets. I also recommend grabbing the little tower pad that come with them. And what I typically do is I'll put a piece of tape down here, measure the total distance of the width of that bracket on the bottom, and cut that in half. I then leave a little line here, because since we already made a line on here earlier, I can just match those up. Just lined up, and I'm going to push this as far against the side here as I can, making sure it is flat. Now we got two options. We could either grab a pen and mark it out that way. I think that's perfectly fine. Or what I like to do is just grab a punch tool, find the center of that, and mark it out. There we go. Move that out of my way, see if it looks good. That's part of the reason why I like to use this painter's tape, because it is a little bit easier to see this way. All right, so now we can go over to those spots we marked earlier, and we can drill a hole in there with an 1/8 inch bit, lining that up, applying some pressure. All right, so once you're done with that, then depending on what type of roof you have, so if you have a canopy, you'll be using something else, but if you have something that has a lot more support underneath it, you'll just be using this screw here with this rubber washer. Now in our case, we're not going to be going that route since, as you saw, I kind of went right through there. I don't have much support. Instead, we're going to be using these carriage bolts, and we're going to have a plate that goes with it. So I'll show you that process now. All right, so what I did next, since we're going to be using these carriage bolts instead, is I enlarged these holes just a little bit. So now this fits perfectly through. Once you've done that with both holes, then I'm just going to remove this tape so it's out of our way. I also want to make sure this area is pretty much cleared off. You don't want no debris underneath it getting in its way. The way we're going to put our towers on is we'll grab the tower. Underneath there, I put some butyl tape on here so it gets a better hold on it. And that's going to line up to the contours of that foot, just like that. Once that's done, you're going to push that carriage bolt through each one of these. You're going to have a little bit of resistance, and you're going to push it through this hole as well. Once it's on the other side, you're then going to take this plate and make sure those angles are facing inwards. And you're going to put your small split washer and then your nut on. And then you're going to secure it down. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit easier if you have a friend with you, someone to hold it down, apply pressure from the top, and the other person to tighten it from underneath. Just going to put a little bit of pressure down just in case I have to move it some. Grab that bolt. I like to apply a decent amount of pressure to it. Sometimes I'll pivot it some so it pushes through that hole. If it's not going through, I'll just lift it up a bit. See how it's looking from a corner or angle. We look pretty lined up, so I'm going to put more pressure down. There we go. Push that all the way down so that carriage bolt seats into that square. Then we're going to grab our second one, do that same thing, then secure them down from underneath. And here we are coming up underneath. I have a friend holding it for me at the moment. Again, we have those angled edges facing inwards. And when you put it up here, just push it through those holes. And sometimes you're going to have a lot of butyl tape on the end of it. A lot of time I'll just pick that off, so it's out of the way. Put a washer on there, and then start to thread that nut. Once you have these hand tight, you can come back through with a 10mm socket and wrench and tighten that down the rest of the way. Now we're just going to tighten the rest of the way. I like to kind of go back and forth between these so I don't over tighten one too much, too fast. But once you finish up here, that's pretty much how we're going to install each one of these towers, so you can just repeat that on the rest of the corners. Alrighty, so with all 4 of those towers in place, let's come over to our crossbars. So there's going to be 2 pieces. You're going to have a male and a female end. They're just going to slide into each other. The only thing you need to make sure, though, is this hole on the very front of it is going to be in the same location on either one of them, just like that. Then just push them in together. Once they're pushed in, then we can grab a bolt that comes with your kit, and we'll grab a Allen key so we can tighten that down the rest of the way. Because you're going to have some blue Loctite on there, you'll eventually have a little bit of resistance there, and this can finish it off. All right, so we can get this on top of our roof. So what you're going to need is to grab some of these clamps. They're going to go around your bars. I find it best if you take the side with that extra large lip on it compared to the other side and face that towards the outside. You just grab it. You can just typically push it in. I push it in a fair amount, because you'll see why in a second. And now I can, with a helping hand, lift this on top of my roof, just roughly into place. And what you can do is just slide that over and fit it right into that tower. The way you can tell if this is in the right position is if you see into this hole, if you can see that completely, you're good to go. Me, I can tell I already put mine in the wrong direction, so I'm just going to pull that out, flip it around, and just like that, it's pretty easy to fix if you mess that up too. So with this in place, I'm going to grab my tape measure, and we're just going to check our overhang. Once you get that, just double check the other side, see where it's sitting at. And I typically like to keep mine as even as possible, so if you're going for that, just adjust it, either pushing in or pulling out some. Kind of like that. Sometimes give it some taps, might be a little bit easier for you. Just like that. And once you have it where you want it to sit, then want to grab another carriage bolt. This one's going to be a shorter one compared to the one we had earlier. And I'm just going to push that through this opening here. I'll put it through the other way so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing today. Then I'm going to put this split washer on it and top it off with this nut. Then you can come back through and tighten that up to fully secure this down. All right, and the last step I'm going to be doing is just grabbing some sealant and covering up these bolts and the edges. Just make sure no water leaks through here. And this is really just going to be our last step. Now you just want to start off with a smaller bead, and if you need a little bit more, just put a little bit more on there. And with it fully installed, that'll do it for our look at the Swagman ROAMER Roof Rack. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.